So this is a 27-inch monitor from Titan Army. And today I wanted to see how good this monitor can actually be. Because on paper, it seems to be a really great monitor, but can actually deliver and be usable in competitive gaming. And just so you know, I'm not gonna hold this monitor for the whole duration of the video. Usually I hold the things that I talk about, but do you really want to see me like this the whole video? First off, I just wanted to mention that this video is not sponsored by Titan Army. They did send out the monitor for me to test out, but I was the one that actually reached out to them. I was actually curious how good a monitor at this price could actually be. But they have no say in this video, so all the thoughts are my own. So this is the Titan Army 27-inch monitor. This is the P2718C. I'm gonna link it down below in the description. So on paper, this is a 27-inch monitor that is full HD up to 144 Hz display, and this is an IPS panel with a wide viewing angles. So I have to say that the 27-inch monitor is definitely a nice size for me. I know for some this might be too big. I'm used to playing on my OLED TV, which is 49-inch. It is 4K up to 120 Hz display. And this is the size of a monitor, TV in this case, and this is the size that I usually play at. While this is a smaller monitor compared to that, I feel for a monitor, it is on the bigger side. And for me at least, that is actually a pretty nice size. I didn't feel anymore that I'm squished down to a small monitor. It is something that I don't like when I'm away from my own setup and I have to play at a smaller monitor. I'm not a fan of that. I kind of like to have a lot of space. And I know for competitive shooters, people would say smaller is gonna be better. I personally am so used to a big screen that I felt like I always missed having that big screen. I can't see as much, I can't be as accurate. So for me, this 27-inch monitor is definitely a great size. I definitely felt like I saw a lot more than a traditional smaller monitor. And at 1080p, it still felt super sharp. At 27-inch and 1080p, it felt super sharp. I had no problems with that whatsoever. And from what I saw, Titan Army does have some different monitors that are more than 1080p. But for me, personally, 1080p at this size is more than enough. And to be honest, a lot of times is actually gonna be better for the games that you play. I play mostly on my PS5, which can go up to 4K 120 frames per second supposedly, but we know that it's upscaled. When it is at 1080p, it is gonna be a nice 1080p signal with 120 frames on it. So when I'm playing, for example, Warzone or Fortnite, it can actually be shown at the best quality possible, at that resolution, and at a nice 120 frames per second. Also, while it is an IPS panel, it has really nice viewing angles. Even on camera, I was kind of skeptical how I'm gonna show you because I always have to have the camera on the side. I felt like it was pretty nice. I had no problems whatsoever with showing you the different sides of it. And while yes, it's gonna be the nicest looking straight on, the way you're gonna probably use it, but if you have it from the side, it has a really nice viewing angles. I had no problems whatsoever with that. So that was really nice. And yes, for an IPS panel, I would say it's way above the average in terms of the viewing angles. That is pretty nice. One thing, if you're interested in cheaper games, check out Instant Gaming, where you can find cheaper games. For example, I found the Batman Arkham Trilogy for just a couple of dollars. And together with Instant Gaming, we're doing a giveaway where one of you can win a game of your choice. If you're interested in this month's giveaway, check out the link down below. One more thing is, it is the contrast and the colors. Well, this monitor is supposedly 99% of the sRGB range. That is pretty nice. I would say for an IPS panel at this price, this is a great mark. It is really colorful, but also it seems to be really color accurate. So when I was playing the games that I usually play on my OLED TV, I didn't really feel that big of a jump off that usually I would have with different monitors. This one really felt like it was a nice IPS panel. So while it isn't an OLED, the contrast, the colors are definitely there. It's definitely a sharp, colorful, saturated, and contrasty screen. But you can always change those in the settings too. There are settings in this monitor which you can actually change, but I didn't do any changes in the menu other than putting into FPS mode, which we're gonna get into in a second. And I feel like that could be also because it supports HDR10, and because I'm playing on PS5 and Xbox Series X and even the Nintendo Switch 2, all of which support HDR, I feel like that really showed, and that actually helps it to be even more colorful and just better looking. But the one thing that I was really curious about is 144 Hz display. And while playing on PS5 or Xbox Series X, you're limited up to 120 frames per second. That is still close enough to the limit of this monitor, and it is pretty much the base FPS that I would play when playing those kind of games. If I'm competitive, I want to play at the highest frame rate you can. So if you're playing from a PC or a handheld PC, you can push it up to 144 Hz. For my testing, I was mostly using it with the consoles, so it was at 120 frames per second. And to be honest, coming from an OLED display, which usually is really good for input delay and just the speed of it, this didn't feel like a downgrade. I was seriously impressed how smooth it was and how I could really quickly just get going. I really had no transition period. I was certainly feeling like it was the same monitor I was playing it, even though it might look a little bit different. It might not be as high contrast, the blacks are not going to be as nice as on the OLED, but overall for gaming experience and competitive gaming experience, this was a great monitor. There was no ghosting, there was no smudges. Everything seemed to be really nice. The responsiveness, the response time, while I cannot test it and tell you exact parameters, I can tell you that it didn't feel at all worse than playing on an OLED TV. So in my opinion, I had no problems, and I feel like for competitive shooting on 120 frames gameplay, it was perfect. But I was playing on the PS5 in 120 Hz mode, which means up to 120 frames, and I did change on the monitor into the FPS mode, so that was another advantage for that. If you're playing on an Xbox or PS5 and you want to be competitive, this is gonna be a great monitor for you. And I feel like it's a nice sweet spot between too big and just getting a little bit too much for most people, because while I do love a lot more screen estate, I know that a lot of people would prefer it to be a little smaller, but also this is not too small that you don't see the things that are a little bit farther or a little bit smaller. This was a nice medium range where I could still see a little bit farther, a little bit more of the details, where I would not have a problem with that, but also not too big that you really have to grasp a lot of it. So it was, in my opinion, a perfect size, at least for me. But with that, I have to say the monitor size is gonna be dependent on you. But I know that monitor size can be a preference, so it's gonna be preference based. Also, this monitor has eye comfort. While I don't usually look into that kind of stuff, it does seem like there's a lot of features for that, and also blue light modifications so that you don't have as much of the harmful blue light. So if you're looking into that kind of stuff, it definitely has all of that features. Alongside the 144 Hz, you also have adaptive sync. Because of this, you will not have screen tearing. When the frame is pretty much cut into two, because one half of the frame is already ahead, one is a little bit behind. And then your games start to have the tears, where you can kind of see it tearing apart. Thanks to this, you don't have that because it works with your console, with your computer to eliminate screen tearing. And that is perfect for gaming, especially for those that want to really focus on the game and not have to think about how the screen looks, how everything is not smooth or something is cutting off. So in that regard, it works perfectly. Also, this monitor has different modes. Not only have the standard, you also have the FPS, that one that I use the most because it was probably the best for input delay and overall that kind of a gameplay. You also have an RTS, gaming, movie, and network modes. So these different modes are gonna be a little bit different, looking a little bit different, and might have different features, but they're made for a specific kind of use. So you can use it for different kind of occasions where it's gonna work a little bit different. I personally went for the FPS because I was playing FPS games for the most part, or I just wanted to be having as little of input delay and I don't want to have any other additional things on the monitor. And that is how I usually play. I don't like to have any additional things, additional help on my screen, whether it be color, contrast, or any kind of beautifying situations. I just want it to be as responsive as best for competitive gaming. But even in the FPS mode, I didn't feel like I was losing on the quality or the colors. At least to me, it was perfect in that mode. And overall, the monitor, the build quality is pretty nice. It isn't too heavy, but also not only the stand, but the monitor looks really gamer focused, but at the same time looking really traditional. So you could use it as a nice gaming monitor, but also use it as a traditional monitor. And I wouldn't say anybody would say, oh, you have a strictly gaming monitor. You have a nice monitor. So it's, in my opinion, a nice medium between having that gaming flair, but not overly aggressive. Even the stand and the monitor on the back look really nice. So overall, I have to say the design is pretty nice. And overall, the build quality is pretty nice. The setup is super fast, just a couple of clicks into place, and it was all set up and ready to go. And in the box, you get the stand, you get the HDMI cable, and you get the power cable. But if we get the monitor, as you can see on the back, as you can see on the middle, there is a place for you to mount if you wanted to mount it on a wall, for example. So I have to say that I was pleasantly surprised with this monitor. It is a great monitor. I feel like it's great for performance and if you want to have that competitive advantage. But I have to say that at this price, you can't go wrong with this. It is a nicely priced monitor that offers a lot of the features that way more expensive monitors or even TVs have. So in my opinion, this is a great monitor that I can highly recommend. I can definitely say that I can recommend if you're looking for a nice monitor for gaming, and especially for those that want to have that 120 frames per display on your consoles or 144 Hz display on your computer. If you have any more questions about this screen, let me know in the comment section down below. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed this video once again, and I'll see you next time.